Hello, guys, and welcome back to the MMA India show. This is your host, Parvin Dabas, and we are with Jitendra Khare, head coach of team Relentless and gym owner, I would say Evolution Gym, right?
Yes, Evolution Fitness and Combat Sports Academy.
Yes,
Thanks
great.
for having me.
Great. Thank you for coming on, Jitendra. Now, first of all, how are you? How have you been self-isolating, so to speak, during the lockdown period?
So, since the lockdown has been announced, Parveen, we've shut down our classes, and just for the team, what we are doing is the usual training times are afternoon and evening. We all get on a video call and train together. We do Muay Thai and some strength and conditioning work almost every day, twice a day. So, yeah, it's been good. Technology helps that way.
Okay, great, awesome. Now, can you explain what the Apprentice? You've applied for the Apprentice One Championship recently. Is for our viewers who are not, familiar with the concept, and also what made you decide to want to be a part of it?
So to begin with, I'm sure just a small background on Apprentice. It aired in 2004, and I think like most reality TVs that was started at that point by Mark Burnett. This was also one of the concepts that was started by Mark Burnett with Donald Trump in 2004. I do remember seeing the Apprentice Asia version with Tony Fernandez.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're getting stuck a little. Yeah.
And then of course the most famous one with and the most famous one, of course, being Arnold going, "You're terminated." So yeah, it's about 15 to 18 business kind of like businessmen who are being going through an elimination process to be mentored by one of the top businessmen in the world. So that's the whole concept of Apprentice, and I'm assuming they're going to try and do the similar thing. I mean, nothing is being disclosed. We are still in the selection process and hoping to get to be one of the 16 that get to be mentored by Mr. Chatri. So to be very honest, when I read about this, it sounded very interesting, but I have a little problem with putting myself in front of the camera and talking and being recorded. But my partner and my friend, she Preksha Zaveri, she kept insisting, and she actually sat me down for 3 days, got the whole video done, and forced me to put that up. And I think it was good. I think it was good for me to get out of my comfort zone and do something I'm not used to. My family, my friends, and my team were all, I can say, was very shocked when they saw that video because none of them thought that I would do something like that. Put up a video saying, "Yeah, vote for me and please help me get into this." But yeah, I think uh, it's good. It's a good learning for me. I need to get out of my comfort zone and do something better.
So is that why you wanna do this, to get out of your comfort zone? That's the main aim behind it.
Multiple reasons, Parveen. Yes, one of the things is obviously, for my personal development and personal growth. I have been involved with the MMA scene in India for over a decade now, and you know that. And I've been coaching and been part of promotions. What next? What next? There has to be something bigger than that, Parveen. I always believe this. Which brings me to the point of yeah, like you asked, why do I want to do this? So it's been about 10 years, Parveen, and I've seen promotions come and go, and promotions come and make big promises. uh, we've not yet gotten there. We've not yet gotten there. I think in the last 10 years I was involved with um, One Championship when it started, when it was called the One Fighting Championship. In their first event, we had One represent us at the first One Championship event. And then, I've seen the steady growth of One Championship actually. For that matter, I was even involved with the show that was precursor to One Championship in Singapore. It was called Martial Combat. And I've seen how, Mr. Chatri took over that promotion and how it has grown in the last 10 years. And I think why that is important is because what we need to understand is that when a promotion like that grows, it's an industry that it's created. It's jobs that are being created, not only for fighters, but people behind the show. Also, one great thing that One Championship has done is that it took its first generation of fighters and have now, those are the people that are working as talent scouts and, other things, matchmakers and things like that. So it's about creating an entire MMA industry. And I think somewhere we need to learn how to do that. Just running a gym, just coaching fighters, and just running small promotions is not enough. If we need to make this mainstream, we need to do it right. I mean, and who better than Mr. Chatri to do it right? I mean, I've seen the growth of One Championship. I'm now, taking fighters to One Warrior Series, which is a feeder for the One Championship. It is phenomenal to see how this promotion keeps growing and growing, and how it has, changed the whole martial arts map of Asia, not just Singapore, not just Thailand, India. It's changing the whole map of Asia. And slowly, I mean, we all know about its global domination.
Yeah. Now, what made you want to make a career in martial arts?
So, Parveen, I've said this a lot of times, and I've been a martial artist for life. I was lucky to be in a boarding school where I started learning boxing and competing boxing when I was in sixth standard. And I've been from a small town in the district of Raigad. I was lucky to start mud pit wrestling a bit earlier in my life. Dabbled in a lot of martial arts like karate. Have done judo, uh, which is not actually way back. I started about 10 years back. But yeah, having dabbled around in a lot of martial arts, I just felt that we all have a calling, and this was my calling. When I started the first MMA center in Bombay in 2009 December, actually, that time there were no good MMA centers, and um, for that matter, even we spent about 2 years being trained by people, so-called MMA, and stuff like that. But then I started traveling, going out, learning, and I realized that there was so much to be done. There was so much to be done if you want to take this as a sport, if you want to take this as a career. There's just so much to be done. At that point, I came from a very cushion job, like most corporate jobs. You get a fat paycheck every month. I was working as a project manager for one of the leading MNCs, and but just there was that the job satisfaction, as we call it, wasn't there. And one day I decided that this is what I want to do, and took that step.
But how was the transition to coaching then?
So, Parveen, I guess it was a very natural step, because what happened was the group of guys that we were training at that point. I was, I guess, the most experienced in terms of my martial arts knowledge and in terms of years as well. So obviously, with that came the tag of being the most mature guy. I'm not sure how much that was true, but and then I took it upon myself to spend time going to Fight J in Singapore, and training under my coach and mentor Darren De Silva for striking. And at that point, our black belt Professor Stain Suzuki under BJJ, and then trying to bring what we've learned back down, and promoting that and training with that knowledge, but at the same time parallelly trying to even grow my knowledge so that my team grows.
Okay. And do you see a generational change in fighters today? Is there a difference between the original, you can say, stock of fighters who came out of India and a different breed of fighters today who are probably more exposed to what's happening internationally, or is it the same? Like abroad, you do see a certain change in fighters, in a new breed of fighters that you're saying who are probably a lot more well-rounded and try various stuff, rather than before. Do you see that in India or not?
Oh, the generational change has been huge, Parveen. I mean, you see the promotions today, and you can make out the difference. There are certain promotions that I've been seeing, and I'm sure you'd also agree with me. The undercard fights featuring the newer fighters are sometimes more exciting than the ones that are, the so-called first generation or second generation of Indian MMA fighters.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a huge change in terms of skill development, obviously, because I believe that the first generation of fighters weren't that exposed to knowledge, or the access to knowledge was difficult. Hence, their growth wasn't the percentage of growth wasn't that much given time. Whereas now, given all the exposure, uh, the newer generation of fighters, we are coming to a point where people are training mixed martial arts. They are not boxers who are wrestling. They are not wrestlers
Yeah.
who are boxing. They are mixed martial artists, which I think is a huge change. Obviously, with that, we've also seen a generational change in terms of attitude, where now suddenly we have only Conor McGregor's and trash talkers, where I thought the first generation of fighters had more humility. But I guess it helps in selling themselves. I'm not much. I don't really care much about
Yeah,
that.
now, do you see any role of or incorporation of traditional martial arts like the Indian Kalaria Pattu or Kung Fu in martial arts and MMA today?
So, Parveen, I've always felt that there is always a role of traditional martial arts. I mean, it might be a technique, it might be a simple discipline that gets carried over. But, I mean, there's no one martial arts which can purely, okay, like people say, oh, wrestling is the best or BJJ is the best. But I think there's a role for every martial arts in mixed MMA. And that's the beauty of MMA. I mean, you can take techniques from certain martial arts and, you can apply that. I mean, we've seen spinning heel kick knockouts over the years. There was a time when
Hello, hello, hello.
I think I lost you there.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
back now. Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. So sorry, you want to end that again? We lost you in between a little.
So what I'm saying is that over a period of time, we've seen so many things being tried out in MMA, like spinning heel kick knockouts and cartwheel kicks and all sorts of things. And I think there is scope for a lot. And again, like I've always felt, techniques. Yes, there are techniques from traditional martial arts which will always be used in mixed martial arts. And we'll always see something new and exciting.
Great. Now, how do you think MMA in India can really start picking up traction? We've seen some starts and stops in a lot of promotions, but none have really gained a momentum. So how and when do you think that can start happening? In India, of course, there's been talk about one coming down. They didn't, of course, announce any date for this year, though. There's been talk for some time. UFC was supposed to come down, but as far as I know, they have delayed their plans as of now. But even within the Indian promotions, what do you think it's going to take to start gaining some momentum with the Indian promotions?
So, like I said, Praveen, I think what we need is to create an industry around this. We need people doing this full time. We need people who will dedicate their time, energy, and resource in promoting this as a sport. And that is where I think that need gap is there. I mean, we see, like you said, rightly, yes, promotions start, stop, and then we'll see suddenly events shooting up. In a month you'll have 8 events, 9 events, and then suddenly they're quiet for a period of time. I think we need people that are dedicated to doing this full time, dedicated to, because what I feel, Parveen, we lack is, if you see any sport, there has to be a constant inflow of whether that is sponsorships, whether that is branding, whether that is tie-ups, people talking about it, people promoting it. It's not generally what we've seen a trend in India is a Bollywood movie comes up and then we have a boost for some time and promotions start coming up and actors promoting it and then it dies down. And I think that's where, and I guess that's like I said in the start, that's where we are lacking, and that's what I would love to take back from that Apprentice one is how to create an industry around this, because we need to understand that when there are guys doing this full time, when there are athletes involved full time who are training, who know that yes, I have to fight 4 times a year, when there are people who have jobs around this, whether that is marketing, whether that is branding, whether that is uh, sponsorships, promotions, then it's about creating a system. And I think that is what we are lacking at the moment.
But don't you think, and that was going to be my next question of what you hope to learn from Mr. Chatri, Of course, now you've told us, but don't you think that what you're talking about, the ecosystem, also depends on, it's like what came first, the chicken or the egg, right? So do we put those systems into place? How do you pay people until the sponsors are interested, right? Now the sponsors seem to be backing off because they consider it, a lot of them consider it a blood sport, violence. In India, anything to do with a little blood, they seem to be a little wary of, as far as I know. So how does one get, first of all, because there have been shows and everything, how do you get the public interested more? So therefore, then the sponsors come on board. Therefore, you have money to start hiring people full time, and therefore you can make an industry of it.
So, Parveen, I think, see, firstly, I believe that we need to start somewhere.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
I also believe this.
No, you're getting.
I said we need to start somewhere.
Yeah, of course.
Can you hear me now, Parveen?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
So what I feel, Parveen, is that we need to start somewhere, right? We need to understand, we need to acknowledge that maybe the way we are doing things right now is not right, because if it was, we should have been somewhere, right? And I mean, I really don't have an answer, and this is what I hope to learn, because like I said, see, I've been traveling to Singapore since 2012. I think One Championship was just coming to light when Singapore, I started training around Singapore. And I've seen the growth, I've seen the shift in mentality of even people in Singapore. So it's not that it cannot be done, it's that we need to do it right. And like I said, Parveen, I'm the first to tell you that, yes, I don't have the answers. And that's the kind of answers, that's the kind of knowledge I would love to gain. Uh, you know, uh, it's a process. I understand it's a process, and sometimes we need to start from scratch and redo it all over again if we need to do it right. Because I truly believe that if we were doing it right already, uh, we should have been where we should, have been.
Yeah.
So there is no harm in learning and implementing best practices.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, of course, you've applied to be Mr. Chatri's apprentice, so we can't ask you what you think of him, because we know the answer, of course, if you've applied to be with him. But no, he has done a lot to promote mixed martial arts in Asia, of course, and also up against, and probably a better job in Asia so far than UFC as well. In terms of spreading it around, his shows are big hit. He manages to take it around to different cities, keep switching it around, and also bring in a lot of investors, which is what fuels these shows. And he fills up stadiums as well. What do you think, if you got, let's say, one question that you could ask Mr. Chatri, what would that one question be?
Oh, it'll be a very long question. It'll be so if I have to just keep putting commas, it's going to be one, how did he start? In the sense, we all have a vision, we all have a dream, but how do you put that down into onto a board and say, okay, now I start from here? I think that is the most important thing. Is I want to understand the work that has gone behind into what we see today. You know, if you see, what I think he has done best is he hasn't tried to go, purely the UFC way and purely promoting fight. He has stuck to the values which I think are very Asian, which is respect and honor, and that's what he's promoted. And if you see, one uh, good thing, or is that what he's done is he's not stopped at one championship. I mean, today, yeah, we see figures around one championship and its telecast and how it's a global leader and stuff like that. But he's not stopped there. I mean, what he's trying to now do is get it an Olympic recognition by, by supporting associations like Global Association of Mixed Martial Arts, and trying to help them to get an observer status from Olympics and stuff like that. So I think what he's doing is, and one of the reasons why I really look up to him, and one of the reasons why I even wanted to do this, was because he didn't stop there. He didn't say, okay, one is doing great, I don't need to do this. I'm done. I'm going to be good. I'm just going to keep doing shows for the next 10 years, bigger, better. He's now trying to promote it into the Olympics. He's trying to take it to the next step where the sport becomes more legit. It becomes better for all of us. I mean, we know that if tomorrow we do manage, if and ever manage to get that Olympic recognition, it's going to become much better for all of us. It becomes a legit sport, I think, which is one of the things that we are struggling with here in India as well. So I think, you know, again, going back to the point, my question to him would be, you know, how did he even start putting this vision into, or breaking it down into a plan which was executable? I
You
mean,
mean you mean did he have like a short-term plan and a long-term plan?
yes, always. So there has to be a micro and a macro plan, and how you know it's phenomenal. I mean, like I said, I've been involved with One Championship since its first show. It's just phenomenal every time that I'm there, and I'm part of even shows like One Warrior Series or see a One Championship. The growth is just phenomenal.
Great. Well, Jitendra, we wish you all the very best for this application and hope to see you on the show. So till then, stay isolated. Everybody stay home, stay safe, and continue your online classes. Take care, Jitendra. Thanks for talking.
Thank you, Parveen.
Take
Take
care.
care.
Cheers. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, so we're back on the MMA India show with Vishal Seigell, coach of Koi Combat Academy, correct?
Yes, sir. That's me.
How's it going?
Given the circumstances, it's going good, sir.
मैंने सुना है कि ये लॉकडाउन ने आपके साफ सफाई के जो स्किल है वो बढ़ा दिए.
Yes, बहुत बिल्कुल उड़ा दिया. Plus definition आ गया. Shoulders, triceps, forearms, back.
वो कराटे किड का क्या था वो सीन? Wax on,
Wax on,
wax off, wax on, wax off.
Disinfectant on, rub the hands.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm glad you've been learning that, so you can be the next Karate Kid coach, right?
I hope to be.
Yeah. So now, tell me, explain a little from your perspective. You know, why do you want to come on the Apprentice show? We've already heard a little from Jitendra what the show is about, and can you tell me from your perspective, why do you want to be a part of it?
Well, from what I understand, the show is it's going to throw a lot of unrelentless challenges at you, for your mind, for your body first, and second, the thing is the way I've been running things, as far as I'm concerned, or Koi is concerned, is been more try to do everything for the athlete, so on and so forth, and unfortunately for me, I've never looked at the business aspect. Everybody always asks me, what is my business angle, and I really don't have an answer. And when I say I don't have one, they're stumped, which is, I mean, I know what I'm saying sounds silly, but to my mind, for me to give 100% in what I do and how I teach, how I interact with my fighters or whoever, it takes a lot from me. And I need to learn how I need to get the business angle into what I'm doing to be able to do it much better. So,
okay.
In short, that is what I.
Great. Now, what made you want to take up coaching? Did you ever? Now, sorry, I don't know about your early history, but did you ever have some fights as a fighter, or did you directly get into coaching?
Did I have fights myself?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have been in martial arts since the age of 6. I followed my brother into karate classes. Then eventually, when I, from the time I can remember something, I had actually started with judo. So I've had competitions in judo and kickboxing and taekwondo and American jiu-jitsu, pancration, mixed fight. I fought at the Indian casinos way back in 2001, I think it was, in MMA. So, but from the age of, I think, 14 or 15, I had started already teaching. So I used to teach. There's a lot of kids with me when I was going for my training who would come for training, sometimes not come, and I always wondered why. And I came to find out that it was a matter of fee or something to do with finances. So, and from the beginning, I had this studies. I was never good, but when it came to something physical, and my outlet was martial arts. It came very naturally to me to be able to teach somebody and break it down, and it be effective in teaching someone. So it came very naturally to me. That was way back in like the early 90s. So.
Great. Now, is there any fight that you've been a part of as a coach, which has been really taxing and hard, that was a real battle that you can tell us about?
There's been quite a few fights, and there's been quite a few athletes that I've cornered. Even athletes who did not belong to my gym, but they showed up at a competition, not having a coach, and it's essential to have a coach, a corner. But the one that hit home, and the one that's the most recent, is when we just went to the World Championship. And this was, I think, all of the Indian contingent was out of the competition. And this was, I think, the second day or the third day. I have to kind of refresh my memory. And Surbala Laishan, Warrior Princess, it was her fight. She was up against a Mexican national champion, I think, or a state champion, I'm not very sure. And I think pretty early on in the first round, she ended up hurting a knee. Now, right before this, there was an athlete who had missed weight, unfortunately, by 100 grams. He tried real hard. His coach was with him. Unfortunately, that's how things happened, and the rest of the Indian contingent was out of the competition. This was like the last hope. There was a little bit of communication gap in terms of what she was relaying to me at the end of the first round, and with all the factors kept in mind, she came to me and she said she's hurt her knee is paining, but she could not tell me anything more than that. So it was very heart-wrenching to not know what is the degree of the injury, because there's a difference. I mean, obviously injury causes pain, but sometimes you have certain pains that can be overlooked. And in competition at that level, at that time, with everything at stake, we went through all 3 rounds, and she fought valiantly. Unfortunately, with not all her tools, and striking is a big part of her game. So going through each and every round, seeing her fall in the second and the third round again, it's very unfortunate. That's the one that's really something.
Okay, I got it. Okay, but now as far as there seems to be a new generation of athletes today. Do you agree with that? That there was a breed of pure pure MMA is not the term, but like Jitendra described, that a lot of people initially, especially in India, came from either boxing or judo or wrestling or something. But today, fighters are MMA fighters. They have grown up in training in MMA, and they've been exposed to much more, of course. So would you agree with that? And what's your viewpoint on
that? Yes. I mean, we are still seeing a lot of athletes from India who have a background, as they say, and they put that style of MMA where it comes wrestling, boxing, whatever. Now, yes, we are starting to see a lot of athletes come, with a little bit of everything and trying to make it, or coming with a little bit of striking background, improving on their grappling, or vice versa, and so on. There's good and bad part to it. I've seen a lot of athletes, they still who are in still at the infancy stage of their career in MMA, and they are still they have this mindset of striking to hey thoda take down defense seekhunga to sabka. No, that has to go out the window. There has been fighters who have started learning MMA with very little or less or no background at all, and they've been successful. It is the Canadian fighter. He's from GSP's camp. You know what I'm talking about. It'll come to me in a second. So
Rory McDonald.
Rory McDonald. So he started. I don't think he had any background, no karate, no taekwondo, no wrestling, no boxing, no kickboxing, Muay Thai. He started as a, he had no, let's say, sometimes it's called, he didn't have any bad habits of sorts. Obviously, every martial art comes with, a good part, and then there's, let me call it the business part, right? But now we are starting to see the awareness of the necessary training requirements to be a complete MMA martial artist. Slowly they're understanding. So at the grassroots level, it is our job as coaches to make sure that each and every competitor, combat athlete, fighter, what have you, understands that. So the correct information in this case is very paramount.
Now, what do you think of the job that Mr. Chatri has been doing with One? What is it that you admire about him? And what do you think of the job he's been? Of course, you're applying for One, so I kind of know what way that answer is going to go. But what what do you think of the job that Mr. Chatri has been doing in developing One? What is it that attracts you to One Championship?
All right, let me start by saying, let me put my butter tray away, right?
Yeah. Of course, since one of your fighters, Roshan, is fighting for them as well.
Yes, yeah, he was. I feel Chatri, given the family background, given the hardships that he had to go through at an early stage, that really solidifies a lot of things, and a lot of the way you think and the way you conduct yourself from that point on. We were just talking about one of Roshan, and he also came from a tough background. Mr. Chatri, they had a big financial loss, and they went from everything to nothing. I come from.
When was that?
This was way when he was young in Thailand.
Okay.
I think his family had gone through a major financial crisis, and which poured on. It opened the gates, so to speak, with everything bad that had to come. He took that, and he used it in a positive manner. It can either make you, or it can break you, one of the two. So you choose. It's not as easy as the words I say, but you really have to live in that situation to appreciate and to respect a lot of things, that somebody else might take for granted. But if you look at it from the scope of things, when he started One Championship, it wasn't doing very well, or it was doing mediocre. He stuck with it. He's a wizard when it comes to finances and when it comes to doing business, and he applied it here with the passion of martial arts, and he's a true student of the game. In Marines they say, once a Marine, always a Marine. In martial arts, once a martial artist, always a martial artist. Sure, there'll be exceptions to the case in everything, but so in the whole scope of things, the kind of visibility he has given to martial arts, to MMA, and in general to the Asian scene is commendable. And regardless of if I get selected, if I don't get selected, does not really matter. That's a fact. That anybody with a little bit of information, knowledge, and knowing what the reality is would do. Everybody loves a story. Somebody coming from rags to riches, and that's a prime example. Unfortunately, what happens is people see where somebody came from. They forget the middle part of what happens, what this person went through, and then where he is now. So nowadays, going back to your old question, your previous question, excuse me, of the fighters, the new breed of fighters, the only one thing I would like to add to that, I've seen and I've trained personally a lot of fighters who've seen a lot of fighters that they were very poor. Now they see that they're very rich. They don't know what happened in the middle. So that is what is very important. Persistence, dedication, these willpower, these are just not tenets of martial arts. These are not just words. These are actual things that you put in process, you put yourself through to be able to achieve what you're trying to do. Sure, money is good, but that is like a byproduct of what he really is trying to do. In my case, money is a byproduct if and when it comes. My main passion and goal is, and that is what he's done, and he's showed to people this is where I came from, this is how I went through it, and this is where I'm now, and I'm not stopping. That is where, I have a similar process, because uh, I've gone through certain things in life, but it makes sense to me. When I see it, as a third person or a person who is not associated with them in any other way, uh, you sit and you think and you kind of put everything together, and it makes a lot of sense. It's fantastic. It's there's when you take MMA and you take traditional, your martial arts, what I see missing is, uh, there's a lot of respect in traditional martial arts. Yes, you would agree, right? There's a lot of formality, which is good, which is good. But when you get carried away with just that, right, and don't have the tools, then there's a big problem in quality or whatever you're trying to benchmark. What he's done is he's taken those good things, the tenets of martial arts, and you can take any martial arts, and he's taken the raw power of the physicality of person, and he's put it together, or he's trying to, and he's done a fantastic job. You look at a fighter's contract. I'm talking because we're talking about this. You can give a 30-day a request as long as you don't have a fight, and you can, as long as you're not deferring from plans that one has for you, and you can, give your advance notice and go fight somewhere else and give a percentage. That is excellent for a fighter, right? No, I don't see anybody who's employed by One Championship and Evolve would need to do that. They would be crazy too, unless there is a exception. But for the most part, who a martial artist now can say, hey, you know what? An Asian martial artist can now say, on an average, with a large number of people from our side of the world, can say, hey, we have something that we can go present our talent, our skill. Now we can be somebody. Sure, I'm not saying that other organizations or other promotions haven't done that. Sure, they have. Everybody has a different way of thinking, different way of doing, and different way of running things. One cannot please everybody. That's okay. But in the whole scope of what he's done is, imagine the amount of fighters that one employs from Asia. Imagine how it's changed the life of those fighters. A person who had to struggle from going to work in the morning, coming back, a fighter, you know a fighter struggle, you do this all day, and coming back and not being able to train as a part-time fighter, and wanting to live a dream of being a world champion. He's made it so easy. What else does anybody want? So when it comes to martial arts, when it comes to doing for somebody, hats off to Chhatri.
Now tell me, if you had one question that you could ask Mr. Chhatri, what would that question be?
Question. The first question that comes to mind is, like, we have Evolve, in Evolve MMA in Singapore, and it's a concern of One Championship. And right now it's limited to Singapore, I think. Is there a plan in place to, eventually in the future, to bring it to maybe, India, take it to maybe Sri Lanka, or one of where we can, it's more how do I put that? It is a little easier. It is to get more athletes to come and get selected and be a part of the team and get the high level training they're receiving. So that would be my question is, first, when do they have plans to come to a country like India and do the same magic they're doing with Evolve in Singapore?
Now,
because
sorry.
Sorry.
How is your family taken to your application? And if you get selected, how long would you have to be away from?
My family, they have been very supportive. They've been very supportive. I've been very passionate about doing this for a very long time. It literally, I don't try to put it like a feather in my cap, but everybody needs money. You need money, right? That's the reality of it. But it doesn't make me have nightmares anymore. where, okay, I know things will happen. I know things will fall in place. You keep treading. My family has been super supportive. Even before we knew about One Championship, when after Roshan had left, we got in some more fighters. I had briefly talked to you about it, and I kept them in my house. I'd spoken to my brother and my sister-in-law, requested them to, stay at a different house, and they were very, very supportive. My mother's been very supportive. They know how passionate I'm of it, and so as far as that is concerned, I have the best support system, and I think the person who gets selected has to be with Mr. Chetri for about 1 year. The internship, the apprenticeship is for 1 year.
So the apprenticeship is going to be based in Singapore.
That's my understanding. That is my understanding.
Okay. Have you been to Singapore before?
I'm sorry?
Have you been to Singapore? Where was Roshan's fight? Was it in Singapore?
No, his fight was in Indonesia, I thought.
Okay.
Manila, right?
Yeah. Okay. So you've not been to Singapore before?
No, I've been to Singapore when I went to compete in, not sure if it was Australia or Malaysia, one of the two. So I've been to Singapore twice.
Okay. So. Great. Well, nice place to stay. I wouldn't mind staying there for a year, getting out of all
It's like heaven on earth. It's clean. Yeah. People follow the rules. They do it from the heart. You know.
Absolutely. I was there just a couple of months back, so it is a great place. So I wish you all the best, Vishal. And I hope that you succeed in this endeavor and you get it. And for now, I hope all of us succeed in staying home and doing what we are doing in self-isolation. So I'm glad you're making the most of it and keeping the house clean for everyone around.
True, absolutely, and I do appreciate that. I do want to say one thing that I've previously properly failed to say. First is, anybody who's involved with any sort of martial art in India, or with mixed martial arts or what have you, an amateur, beginner, advanced, does not matter, needs to be appreciative of platforms like yourself, like anybody because in my day when we didn't know the guy from the next colony who that fighter was, and the exposure that you provide and the information that you provide is super, super helpful and knowledgeable. Every fighter should appreciate it, regardless if they say it on social media to their friends, does not matter. I really appreciate and salute the service you are giving, the exposure you're giving to all these athletes, because it makes a lot of difference.
Thank you.
If we had nothing like this, nobody would know who Kantaraj is, who Roshan is, who Chaitanya is, who Shrikant is, or who Cross Train is, who Anshul Jubilee is. I really thank you, and I cannot thank you enough, and I really appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Vishal. And like I said, I wish you all the very best. Stay home, stay safe, take care. Until next time. Jai Hind. Take care.